Hey y'all, this is Mr. Mayer, and in this video we will introduce proofs. By the end of the video, you want to be able to say, I can apply algebraic properties to create a two-column proof in order to solve equations. So we're just going to look at one example in this video. We're going to need to use a two-column proof in order to prove the following true. Then you're going to go ahead and check your answer. So what we're going to go ahead and start off with is, we notice we're given this equation. We need to solve this equation just like normal. Okay, everything about this is normal. So we're going to solve this equation, and look, they even gave us the answer this time. So this part is what's being introduced here. This is called a two-column proof. I've got statements on the left, reasons on the right. So I'm just going to go ahead and solve this just like normal. And I always recommend, best practice is to solve this equation off to the side. So that way, everything that you know that you're confident in doing when solving equations, you're going to do exactly the same. The only thing that's going to be different is I'm going to take these pieces of information. In fact, I'm going to take the answer step by step, the answer from every step, and I'm going to put those answers into this table. So the best way I can help start you off to make sure you understand, we're only writing your answers in the table. So we actually already have a place to start. The place you always start off with is the given information. The given information I was provided is 3x minus 14 equals 7x plus 10. So therefore, this is the very first thing that I'm going to put in my proof. I need a place to start. The given information is always where we start. What's the reason that I'm putting this in my table? It was just given information. It's that simple. So this is always where you want to start, right with that given information. So next thing I want to do is go ahead and figure out what is the next step in order to solve this equation. So I always recommend move your smallest variable first, if possible. This works about 90% of the time when we have variables on both sides. If I move my smallest variable first, I see 3x is smaller than 7x. So I'm going to move 3x. Again, it's positive here, then subtracting 14. I'm going to move it by subtraction. 3x is positive, so I use its opposite. I'm subtracting 3x. If I do it to one side, I do it to both. And therefore, those cancel out. So I'm left with negative 14 equals 7x's minus 3x's equals 4x's plus 10. Everything else drops down. And guess what? This is exactly what's going to go in step number 2 in your proof. Okay, so step number 2, I've got a new answer, a new step that I've figured out. And that's exactly how it's going to be written in your table. Okay, how did I know the reason? What was the reason that I went from step 1 to step 2? What's the reason I'm going from step 1 to step 2? The reason is because I subtracted 3x to both sides. That is called the subtraction property of equality. We're saying of equality because there, guess what, is an equal sign in the equation. Okay, so that's exactly how this is going to play out. Let's see if you can figure out what you're going to do next. For the next step, what you're going to do, we are trying to isolate your variable. So to isolate your variable, we need to get this positive 10 plus 10 over to the other side. So instead of 4x adding 10, I'm going to subtract 10 so that that 4x is by itself. Did it to one side, doing it to the other. 10s cancel out. Negative 14 minus 10, just make sure, be careful with this. I'm growing my amount of negatives. There's going to be even more negatives in this answer. So the answer is negative 24. Bring everything else down. Check it out in the proof. This should be the answer to number 3. And this is the answer to number 3. Okay, again, you're only putting the answers in your table. Now, what allowed me to get this answer? Think about it. What did I just do to both sides in order to go from step 2 to step 3? In order to go from step 2 to step 3, I subtracted 10. So that is called the subtraction property of equality again. These are just a coincidence that these are the same. It's not always going to be matching. The last thing I need to do in order to solve this equation, I need to isolate x, get x by itself. Right now there's an invisible multiply by 4. Opposite of multiply by 4 is divide by 4, doing it to both sides. Negative 24 divided by positive 4, this is going to be negative 6. This equals 4's cancel out, and I'm just left with the x here. Okay, so again, make sure that you're putting this in here. That's exactly what we had. Now, what did I just do to both sides? We divided. We divided both sides, so this is called, step 4, the division property of equality. Now, it looks like we're finished because x is by itself, but one little detail we want to make sure that we're clear with. We were asked to solve for x. We were not asked to solve for negative 6. So we want to make sure x is first, negative 6 is second. So the last thing that I'm going to do is flip-flop these two things. And in math, if I want to flip-flop the two sides of your equal sign, again, if I want to flip-flop the two sides of your equal sign, this new property from this lesson is called the symmetric property of equality. Last but not least, we do want to check to make sure that we solved our equation correctly. So for our check, what we're going to do is we're going to plug in negative 6 anywhere I had a variable to begin with. So I want to know, does 3 times negative 6 minus 14 equal, this is a question mark, does it equal 7 times negative 6 plus 10? So I want to know if this is true or not. I go ahead and solve it. This is negative 18 minus 14. Is this equal to 7 times negative 6 is negative 42 plus 10? If I go ahead and solve these, I'm increasing my amount of negatives. Negative 18 minus 14 more is negative 32. And negative 42 plus 10, so these are moving opposite directions on the number line. Hey, it's equal to negative 32. So I know I did this correct. My solving is correct. It matched what they told me to begin with. And therefore, I know that my proof is finished. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hope to see you soon.